When my daughter-in-law told me that I would never meet my grandchild if I didn't give them $250,000, I knew I needed to teach my spoiled son and his wife a lesson. The first time my daughter-in-law put a price on my unborn granddaughter, she did it across a marble table I had paid for. She sat in the breakfast room of their rented townhouse, one hand resting on her stomach and the other turning a silver spoon through a cup of tea she never drank. My son sat beside her. He did not look at me. "We need $250,000, she said. "For the down payment?" I thought I had misheard her, not because of the amount, because of the calmness. She said it the way someone might mention a change in dinner reservations. I folded my hands in my lap. "You want me to lend you $250,000? Her expression tightened. "Not lend," she said. "Help us." My son finally lifted his eyes. "Mom, this isn't just about us anymore." That sentence stayed with me, not because it was persuasive, because it had been rehearsed. His wife reached across the table and placed a glossy real estate brochure in front of me. The house on the cover had 5 bedrooms, a swimming pool, a 3-car garage, and a stone entrance large enough for a hotel. A yellow sticker marked the asking price: $1,185,000. I looked from the brochure to the townhouse around us. The furniture was leased. The marble table was mine. The rent had been paid on time for the past 7 months because I had quietly transferred money into my son's account whenever he claimed business was slow. 1 month earlier, I had paid for their final vacation before the baby arrived. 2 months before that, I had covered a series of prenatal spa treatments because my daughter-in-law said stress was dangerous for the pregnancy. When they announced they were expecting, they told me their car was too small and too old to be safe for a newborn, so I bought them a new one. Not a used car, not an inexpensive car, a fully equipped SUV with every safety feature available. They posted photographs of it online with a caption about being blessed after years of hard work. They did not mention me. That had not bothered me then. It bothered me now. I closed the brochure. "You can't afford this house," I said. My son leaned back as though I had insulted him. His wife's hand stopped moving over her stomach. "We can afford the payments," she said. "We just need the down payment. You told me last week that you were behind on your credit cards. That was temporary. You also said the lease on this place was becoming difficult." My son exhaled sharply. "This is exactly why we didn't want to ask you." It was an interesting thing to say after asking for $250,000. I had spent 31 years as a compliance accountant for a regional bank. My job was to examine the space between what people claimed and what their records proved. Most lies are not complicated. They are simply wrapped in confidence. I had learned to listen for the missing document. "What happens," I asked, "if I say no?" My daughter-in-law looked directly at me. For the first time that morning, there was no sweetness in her face. "Then we'll have to make decisions based on who supports our family." "What decisions?" She glanced at my son. He said nothing. She answered for both of them. "You won't be part of the baby's life." The room became very quiet. Outside the window, a landscaping crew moved across the neighboring lawn. A machine hummed. Someone laughed. A truck door slammed. Ordinary sounds. That was the strangest part. The world remained ordinary while my son allowed his wife to tell me I would never hold my grandchild unless I purchased access. I turned to him. "Is that what you want?" He rubbed his palms together and stared at the table. "I want my child to have a stable home." "That isn't what I asked." His wife's voice sharpened. "Don't put him in the middle." I almost smiled. He was not in the middle. He was sitting beside her. There is a difference. I stood slowly and picked up my handbag. The brochure remained on the table. "I'll think about it," I said. Her shoulders relaxed immediately. She believed that meant I was negotiating. My son walked me to the door. Before I stepped outside, he touched my arm. "Mom," he said quietly, "don't make this harder than it has to be." I looked at the hand on my sleeve. When he was 6, that hand had fit inside mine. When he was 16, I used it to guide his first signature on a checking account. When he was 29, I watched him place a wedding ring on the finger of a woman who had already begun teaching him that love was a transaction. Now he was using that same hand to steady me while asking me to surrender. "I won't," I said, and I meant it. I would make it very simple. I drove home and opened the locked cabinet in my study. Inside were 3 binders. One contained my estate documents. One contained the records of every major gift I had made to my son since his marriage. The third was thinner. It held the papers connected to a family trust established by my late husband. My husband had been patient, practical, and almost impossible to impress. He believed generosity should create stability, not dependence. When he died 8 years earlier, he left most of his assets to me. But he also created a trust for our son and any future grandchildren. The trust contained investment accounts, a small commercial property, and shares in a private storage company my husband had helped build. My son knew the trust existed. He did not know its exact value. He also did not know that I was the sole trustee. The distinction mattered. The trust was not a reward for being my child. It was a structure. There were rules. Distributions could be made for education, medical needs, housing assistance, and the welfare of descendants. But every substantial request required financial disclosure. Income, debt, assets, tax returns, credit obligations, the paper behind the appearance. My son and his wife had avoided formal trust requests for years because they disliked documentation. It was easier to call me directly, describe an emergency, and let affection do what paperwork would not. The car had been a gift from me personally, so had the spa treatments, so had the vacation, so had the monthly transfers. I opened the second binder and began adding. The total was more than I expected. In 18 months, I had given them just over $117,000. That did not include birthday gifts, dinners, furniture, or the wedding. I sat back in my chair, $117,000. And they had decided it purchased nothing. The next morning, my son sent me a link to the house. His wife sent photographs of the nursery she envisioned. By noon, she had added me to a group message with her parents and 2 of her friends. She wrote that they were praying for the right family home and hoped everyone who loved the baby would help make it possible. The message was not a request. It was a stage. Her mother responded with heart symbols. One friend wrote, "That baby deserves the best." My son added, "We're doing everything we can." I did not reply. Instead, I called the trust attorney. His name was Grant Holloway. He had worked with my husband and understood both the documents and the family. I told him about the request. Then I told him about the threat. He was quiet for several seconds. "Do you have that in writing?" he asked. "Not yet." Get it. That was the advice of a lawyer. It was also the advice of every accountant who has ever watched a verbal lie become a written fact. That evening, I sent my son an email. I kept it warm. I told him I had reviewed the house and understood why they liked it. I explained that a contribution of that size would need to come through the family trust rather than my personal accounts. To evaluate the request, I would need their 2 most recent tax returns, bank statements, credit card statements, loan balances, employment verification, and a household budget. I also asked them to confirm the condition they had described during our meeting. Specifically, I wrote, I wanted to make sure I understood that declining the payment would mean I would not be allowed to meet or have a relationship with the baby. My son did not respond. His wife did. Her email arrived 12 minutes later. It was 6 paragraphs long. She accused me of making a joyful family milestone feel like a bank interrogation. She said they should not have to expose private financial information to prove they deserved support. Then, in the final paragraph, she confirmed everything. She wrote that access to their child would be reserved for people who respected their parenting decisions and contributed to the safe, elevated life they intended to provide. She added that if I chose money over family, I should not expect family privileges. I printed the email. Paper does not flinch. It does not reinterpret a conversation after the fact. It waits. The next day, Grant ordered a financial review using only lawful public records and the documents already available through prior trust matters. Within a week, we found the first crack. My son had told me his consulting business was struggling because several clients had delayed payment. The business was not struggling. It barely existed. Its website showed luxury office photographs, a list of corporate services, and testimonials from companies that could not be verified. His social media showed airport lounges, client dinners, conferences, and photographs taken in expensive hotel lobbies. But the business account showed almost no revenue. Most deposits came from me. The second crack was larger. My daughter-in-law had been presenting herself online as the founder of a successful lifestyle company. She posted photographs of product samples, private events, floral arrangements, and boxes stacked for shipment. The company had no meaningful sales. The events were rented photo sessions. The boxes were empty. The third crack explained the house. They were not simply trying to improve their living situation. They were trying to secure a property before their public image collapsed. Their credit cards carried nearly $200,000 in combined balances. They had personal loans, tax arrears, a delinquent equipment lease connected to my son's supposed business, and the SUV I had purchased outright had been used as collateral for another loan. I stared at that document longer than the others. The vehicle title was in their names because I had wanted the gift to be complete. 3 weeks after receiving it, they borrowed against it. The money had not gone toward medical costs or rent. It had funded the vacation I later reimbursed because they told me it had drained their savings. They had been paid twice, once by the lender, once by me. Appearances are expensive when there is no reality underneath them. I invited my son to my house alone. He arrived 20 minutes late wearing a tailored jacket and a watch I knew he could not afford. He refused coffee. I placed a folder between us. "I know about the debt," I said. His face changed, but only briefly. Then came offense. "How? That is not the important question." "It is to me. The important question is why you used the car as collateral, why you misrepresented your business income, and why you asked me to reimburse a vacation you had already financed." He opened the folder and scanned the documents. His jaw tightened. "You had no right to investigate us. I reviewed information relevant to a trust request. We didn't make a trust request. You asked for $250,000. We asked my mother for help. You asked the trustee of your father's estate for money while concealing your financial condition." He pushed the papers away. "My wife was right about you." I waited. He said it again, louder. "She said you would turn this into control." "No, control is demanding money in exchange for access to a child." He stood. "You don't understand the pressure we're under." "I understand it precisely. Your documented income cannot support your documented spending. You always reduce everything to numbers. Numbers become important when someone asks me for $250,000. He paced toward the window. For a moment, I saw something younger in him, not innocence, fear, then it disappeared. "We already told people we're buying the house," he said. There it was. "Not where will the baby live, not how will we repay the debt, we already told people." "The announcement is not an obligation," I said. "It's more complicated than that." "No, it is embarrassing. Embarrassment is survivable." He turned toward me. "If you don't do this, everyone will know you abandoned us." I looked at him carefully. "Is that what you plan to tell them?" He said nothing. I closed the folder. "You have one opportunity to correct this privately. Withdraw the offer on the house. Meet with a debt attorney. Stop using the baby as leverage. I will pay directly for legitimate counseling and financial planning. I will not give you cash." His expression hardened. "And if we refuse, then I will protect the trust." He gave a short, bitter laugh. "From your own grandchild?" "No, for her." He left without taking the folder. 2 days later, my daughter-in-law announced a formal home blessing celebration to be held at a private country club. They had not purchased the house. They did not have financing approval. But they had arranged a party to celebrate their future address. The invitation included a professional rendering of the property and a request that guests contribute to a digital legacy fund instead of bringing baby gifts. The fund goal was $250,000. My name appeared at the top of the donor list. Beside it was the word pledged. They had publicly claimed I had committed the money. Grant called me within an hour. "Do not contact them," he said. I wasn't planning to. "What are you planning?" I looked at the printed invitation. A correction. The country club celebration was held on a Saturday evening. There were white flowers, a string quartet, a photographer, and a wall displaying enlarged pictures of my son and his wife standing outside the house they did not own. Guests posed beside the photographs. My daughter-in-law wore a cream dress designed to emphasize her pregnancy. My son moved through the room shaking hands as though he had completed a major acquisition. I arrived carrying a slim leather portfolio. My daughter-in-law saw me first. Her smile sharpened with relief. She assumed surrender had entered the room. She embraced me for the photographer. "I knew you'd come through," she whispered. I stepped back. "I came to correct the record." Her smile remained in place, but her eyes changed. Before she could answer, a man in a navy suit approached us. He was the managing partner of the real estate firm representing the seller. I recognized him from the transaction documents Grant had obtained with the seller's permission. My son had invited him because his presence made the evening appear legitimate. I had asked Grant to contact him privately that morning. The man greeted me by name. I handed him the portfolio. Inside was my written statement that I had not pledged funds, would not provide the down payment, and did not authorize the use of my name in any financing representation. Behind it was a copy of the gift solicitation showing the false pledge. Behind that was the letter from Grant notifying the firm that any application listing my assets, trust funds, or financial support without signed verification would be fraudulent. The managing partner opened the portfolio. He read the first page, then the second. His expression did not become dramatic. Authority rarely needs drama. He excused himself and walked toward the lender's representative, who was standing near the display wall. My daughter-in-law gripped my arm. "What did you give him?" "The truth." My son appeared beside us. "What did you do?" "I removed my name from your claim." Across the room, the managing partner spoke quietly to the lender. The lender looked toward my son, then pulled out his phone. The change moved through the party in small waves. The photographer lowered her camera. A real estate agent began removing brochures from a table. One of my daughter-in-law's friends stared at the donation screen where my supposed pledge had vanished. My son hurried toward the lender. They spoke for less than a minute. Then the lender handed him a document. Even from across the room, I knew what it was. Notice that the preliminary financing review had been suspended pending verification of assets and liabilities. My daughter-in-law stood perfectly still. Her mother approached and asked what was happening. "No one is supporting us," my daughter-in-law said loudly enough for several guests to hear. I did not answer her. I walked to the donation display and handed the event coordinator a second document. It required the return of every contribution made under the false representation that I had pledged the lead gift. The coordinator read it, nodded, and turned off the screen. That was the moment the frame broke, not with shouting, with a black monitor. Guests began asking for clarification. The managing partner announced that the property was not under contract and that the event should not be interpreted as evidence of a completed sale. My son accused the firm of humiliating him. The managing partner replied, calmly, that inaccurate financial representations had created the situation. My daughter-in-law looked at me with tears standing in her eyes. "You did this to your own family." "No," I said. "I stopped you from doing more." She pressed both hands around her stomach. "You'll never see this baby." I looked at my son. He looked away. This time, it did not break me. It clarified him. "I hope you become better parents than you have been children," I said. Then I left. The consequences came slowly, as real consequences usually do. The house was sold to another buyer. The celebration photographs disappeared from social media. The digital contributions were refunded. My son's consulting business closed after creditors began filing claims. The SUV was repossessed because the loan secured against it had gone unpaid. They moved into a smaller apartment near her parents. For 3 months, I received no updates about the pregnancy. Then, shortly after midnight on a rainy Tuesday, my son called. His daughter had been born. There had been complications, but both mother and baby were safe. He did not apologize. Not then. He simply said, "I thought you should know." "Thank you," I replied. 6 weeks later, he came to my house alone. He looked thinner. The watch was gone. He carried a baby photograph in a plain envelope. He placed it on my kitchen table and began to cry, quietly, without performance. He admitted that the financial pressure had frightened him. He admitted that his wife had turned the pregnancy into a brand and that he had gone along with it because pretending to succeed felt easier than admitting they were drowning. He admitted that threatening me had been deliberate. They believed I would pay. They had counted on love making me weak. I don't know how to fix this, he said. You start by telling the truth when there is no audience. He nodded. It took another 2 months before I met my granddaughter. The visit happened in a family counselor's office, not in a decorated nursery or beneath a camera. My daughter-in-law barely spoke to me. That was all right. Reconciliation is not the same as forgetting, and forgiveness is not a blank check. The trust remained protected. Payments for the baby's medical needs and future education were made directly to providers. My son entered a formal debt plan. He found salaried work. His wife deleted most of her public accounts and eventually began part-time work from home. Our relationship did not return to what it had been. It became more honest than it had ever been. These days, my granddaughter visits me twice a month. She likes the brass key on my desk and the neat rows of labeled folders in my study. When she naps, I sit near the window with tea and a book while rain moves across the garden. There are no staged photographs, no captions about blessings, no audience, just the soft breathing of a child who was once used as leverage and is now loved without a price attached. Families often ask us to protect the frame. Smile for the picture. Keep the secret. Pay the bill. Pretend the cracks are shadows, but a frame is not a family. And love that demands proof of payment is not love. When someone tries to hold your heart for ransom, do not argue with the demand. Document it. Protect what matters. Then step quietly out of the picture they created for you. Peace begins where performance ends.